Hey there gamers, Dreamcastguy here, and today we're talking about Avowed because this is the next big Xbox game that's probably coming to PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch at some point, but I've been playing it, and currently as I record this video, I'm about halfway through the main story. I've had a chance to do weapon upgrades and talking to companions and exploring quite a bit, and I decided to peek at the internet. It does feel like half of the reviewers that are out there are giving this incredibly low review scores, including IGN and GameSpot. It feels like some people are saying it's the best RPG ever, and after having played about half of the game itself, I'm a bit mixed because this is by Obsidian. These people have done a ton of incredibly good games, like The Outer Worlds, Fallout New Vegas, stuff like Pillars of Eternity. I mean, they are a company that more than anybody else has mastered the art of the role-playing game, meaning that it's a game that has the ability to have fun combat and carnage and craziness, but also the exciting conversations, those times where you're trying to talk a boss into offing themselves or managing to survive a 100-man fight by turning them against each other. Like the conversations, the story, the worlds inside of Obsidian games is usually the best part of it, along with the fun combat. With Avowed, though, after having played quite a few hours of it now, I feel like this is the best, most brutal combat system they've ever invented, and by far, it's the worst written. So let's talk. Hi, hope you're having a great day, and if you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, I promise this video is going to be positive towards the end. I do want to talk about the combat and the weapon swapping and the magic and the talent trees, because I think when you're just exploring, when you're just getting a chance to set off into the wilderness and kill bears and loot stuff, that's when the game is good. But the problem is that it lacks impact. So in this, we're playing as a character called the Envoy. You get to make your own custom character, but essentially the way it works is that in this world, some people are called the godlikes. So before you're born, certain people are selected by a god. Their soul is kissed. So when they're born, they have extra gifts, whether it is certain magic, certain talents, certain special strengths and stuff. But with our character, we don't know what God picked us, what kind of godlike we are. So when we're born, we're mighty, but we're not quite sure of our direction. So the king has selected us to use our power in the name of the king, and he sent us on this mission to a place called the Living Lands. Now, our mission is very specific. You are supposed to detect and find this thing called the Dream Scourge. Apparently, people here are having terrible nightmares, and then an infection kind of takes over their body. Now, this can be anything from plants to wildlife to bears. They get taken over by the Dream Scourge. Now, I must admit that the reason I played this game more than anything else is I was actually curious because in a lot of the interviews and stuff, the directors, the writers, they talked about the fact that you can be purely good or purely evil, including some people saying you can team up with the bad guys. And so they do kind of do that. I don't really consider this a spoiler, but in the game, you have these visions, these like psychic conversations with the Dream Scourge. Like, even though it's like a parasite that's taking over the land of the living, it's also kind of an entity. It thinks that it's doing the right thing, even though obviously it's killing everybody in the process, and you can kind of agree or disagree with it, help it or hurt it. But the big problem is that nothing in this game really feels like it has impact. So you keep teaming up. Like, the weird part of this is that because you're Envoy of the King, everybody instantly knows who you are. As soon as people see your face, they go, oh, you're godlike. Oh, you're blessed. Everywhere you go, instantly, every character will immediately murder their whole family if you ask them to. There is no consequences to anything in this game. I've gotten into bar fights and murdered stuff. I've killed people. Specifically, they said, don't kill that guy. In the quest, I would have the dialogue where I'm allowed to kill them, and I would just kill them, and then nothing would happen. I want to get arrested or a bounty or any consequences. In fact, my own companions are like, wow, shouldn't have done that. Anyways, let's all go hang out at the bar. Everybody you get in this game, the couple companions I've gotten so far, they do have different abilities. One that's more like a rogue, he's like a dwarven guy, and then like this big fish dude who's voiced by the guy who played Garrus in Mass Effect. He's more of like my tank guy, and he can self-revive. You also get like a weird sort of bunny rabbit lady who's able to throw magic, and each of these different companions, I feel like my problem is that everybody sounds so disconnected. Like typically in Obsidian games, they do a good job of making it where your dialogue kind of dictates the tone of it. If I'm being aggressive, then the people with me are being aggressive. If I'm trying to calm things down, everybody's trying to calm things down. It feels like no matter what I say, my teammates are constantly chiming in, saying the stupidest, nonsensical stuff ever. I'm old. You ever play in those old AOL Messenger chat things, right? There used to be like these group chats you could go on AOL back in like the late 90s, right? Okay, yes, I'm old as hell. When people would talk, it was like everybody was having a conversation with themselves. You'd say a joke and laugh at your own punchline and stuff like that, right? Everybody in this game talks like an AOL instant messenger chat room. They're all so disconnected, loosely connected via theme, but it's very rare that someone says something and somebody else replies to it. And to me, even 10 hours into it, it's very, very annoying how little it feels like what I'm trying to do impacts this world. Now, part of it just comes down to the fact that the characters repeat stuff a lot. So you can explore. This game takes about 30 hours to beat, 25, 30 hours for like a normal run. If you're trying to do like a big master file, maybe 40 hours to finish it, right? And you're going to want to maybe do multiple runs to try the different specs. There's melee, magic, and ranged. But I noticed that while you're exploring, your teammates typically only have like 4 things they can say. This was an easy target, put them back in the Wheel of Souls, or something like they'll have some quippy line about, this was just like the last time I hurt my arm. It's kind of weird how much it feels like we are not playing a role in this role-playing game. But let's talk about the combat, because I do think that if you kind of just ignore, as bad as that is to say, if you kind of just get over the fact that the story sucks, I do think the combat here is actually pretty damn good. And it's very, very colorful. And let me explain what I mean. So Obsidian has a very specific vibe. Something I've always enjoyed the most about Obsidian games is the fact that I feel like they're not afraid to put their fingerprints all over it, to make their worlds feel so alien, so standoffish, so hostile at times. And I feel like this might be legitimately my favorite world to just get lost in, because whether I'm going through like a forest of mushrooms or going through crypts and trying to track down assassins, or I'm breaking into a chest in the middle of a kingdom and trying not to get spotted, it feels like it does a good job of making everything look so fun. I feel like so many games now are obsessed with realism. And you know what? This doesn't look realistic. I decided to play the entire game third person because it seems like everybody else is playing it first person. I wanted to play it third person. And you know what? I think it's nice that I can see so much around us, so much of my characters, so much of the animations, and so much of just how much this game wants to look good. And I like that, whether it is particle effects or enemies dying and looting gear and stuff like that. Everything looks fantastic. So I played this on the Xbox Series X. I played this in, what do they call it? Performance mode? Yeah, performance mode. And it was hard locked 60 FPS. I feel like the only time I had any frame rates, I had 2 separate times where frames got bad, and both times were just during cutscenes where certain characters were running at a low frame rate, and I don't really know why. But let me talk to you about how you battle. So this has weapon swapping, and I absolutely love it. So this is default. You don't have to unlock it. It's there right at the start of the game. You equip 2 sets of weapons simultaneously, and you can swap between them with Y. Now, I feel like what the game wants you to do is have your long range ability, like, throwing magic or something like that, and then something close, like an axe. I decided to go pure glass cannon. In every talent point, I went full strength, which upped your damage, and then I went fully on board with ranged abilities. I went pure bow. I recently replayed Skyrim, and I decided to be a sneaky rogue with a big bow. I did that here. I went super hard in the paint with just sniping everybody. Every talent point was either, how can I slow down foes? How can I slow down time while I'm aiming? Or how can I crit people's brains out? And I'll be honest, if people touch me, I die. But because my minions are so good at holding them at bay, and I learned the ability to make these vines come out of the ground and hold their ankles and blast them, that pool of vines is very tiny, but I got very good at kind of just running in big circles and shooting these guys in the head. And even if this maybe doesn't look the most fun, it was a blast, especially as I started to learn better magic. I could actually switch to my magic abilities, put defense on myself or burn something. I could use my magic abilities to like make a little puddle of ice or something if I'm trying to hop on top of a platform or stuff. But it was cool to be able to switch between my magic and then my bow and arrow, which kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger. I think this is by far the best Obsidian combat because every fight feels good. But this does bring me to, I don't even want to say it's a bad thing, but it's something I didn't really grasp, which is that the levels aren't really important, at least not in the typical sense. Instead, this is based on a skull system. So enemies basically, when you look at them, they have a series of like levels. It tells you how hard it's going to be. No skulls, 1 skull, 2 skull, 3 skull. It essentially tells you how tough it's going to be. Like a lot of bosses are 3 skulls, a lot of random slightly tougher things that you'd consider like an elite are like 2 skulls, and random bandits, if you're not quite leveled up, they're like 1 skull. But even if something's high level or has a lot of skulls, I've noticed you can still kill it if you're careful. Especially with my ranged build, it was pretty easy to just snipe people over and over again, do snipe takedowns over and over again, and still kill them. But this brings me to the upgrade system. So the way you get stronger, the talent points, the extra abilities, the other magic, those do make you stronger, but what actually makes you better at fighting back, what reduces the skull level, is the gear you're wearing. So your gear is actually how levels work. So while you're doing stuff, main quests or side quests, you find a lot of supplies, hardwood, softwood, all sorts of stuff like vines and upgrade materials. You go back to camp, you can upgrade your weapons and armor. And by doing this, it reduces the skull level. Essentially, the stats are good, but it almost seems to weaken enemies the better dressed you are for the battle. And I think I like this system, but at times it feels weird, and it brings me back to the fact that characters will spam repeat the same things over and over again. At one point, I was in an area that was too high level. I was trying to basically kill some weak stuff to get some gear, because typically if you kill something, you'll find gear that's like closer to the appropriate level. And one of my companions over and over and over again saying, that's not going to be strong enough. That's not going to be strong enough. That's not going to be strong enough. Like 50 times while I'm in the middle of actually killing somebody. And it got to that point where I'm like, buddy, if this isn't strong enough and I'm currently killing him, I think I'm fine. I almost wish that there was an option to turn off dialogue. I know that's kind of rude. I'm sorry. These are talented voice actors. I actually think the acting in this game is good, despite the rather clunky conversational options at times. But I did get a bit irked when I start to hear that same dialogue 500 times in a row. I want to be like, I got it. I know these are strong. I can see the skulls. I see that they're freaking one-shotting my minions. I got it. But when you start to get tougher, when you start to level up, when you start to progress, when your character's build begins to click, damn, is it fun. Essentially what I'm saying is this. If you currently have Game Pass, absolutely this is worth the download. Absolutely, I think this is worth playing. I think this is worth exploring, but are you going to want to beat it? Are you going to want to buy this for $70 when it comes out on PlayStation 5 or $70 when it comes out on Nintendo Switch? I don't think so. But those have just been some of my off-the-cuff thoughts after playing the first half of the game itself. Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.